88th Company, Sons of Horus, rarely walked these decks of his ship, the Lupercals Remeberance. It was not out of apathy or disdain, more that he didn't have reason to walk these decks until today. The conversation he was about to have was not one that he ever really wanted, but now his course and purpose was set, he needed to ensure that all in his service would follow him, no matter the paths he chose to walk. Outside the heavy bulk of his Terminator armor and garbed in a set of Mark V plate, Crozus felt lighter, but more uncomfortable, unprotected, vulnerable even. Not that a captain of the 16th Legion was ever vulnerable. His purpose on this deck of the ship was diplomatic, and as such he had no reason to be armed. But he was. It would be rude to go with his full panoply of war, but Crozus still carried his sword attached to his hip. The blade was called Wolf's Howl by Crozus. He had taken the power sword from a member of the 6th Legion's Wolf Guard during the Battle of Trisolian during the fires of the heresy. Many thousands of years later, after Crozus had taken the blade as his own, a thin-blooded servant of the 6th Legion, in servitude to Huron Blackheart, had told him what the blade's name had meant in Fenrisium. Weird Breaker, the Breaker of Fate. Crozus smiled inside his helmet. He kinda liked that as a name for a sword. Crozus's memories of the past were disrupted as he arrived at his destination. A large set of sealed doors, with 2 warriors in red plate standing either side of the door like guardians. The guards of the Tizcan and warriors of the 15th Legion, or at least they were. Crozus privately believed that the warriors of the 15th that had fallen to the warp curse of Azek Araman were dead, and what was left were little better than mechanicum automatons, obeying orders at the behest of their still flesh masters, unfeeling, unmoving, without flesh, emotional humanity. Not that he'd ever say that to their faces. The Thousand Sons were rather sensitive about the subject. "I wish to see your master," spoke Crozus to the 2 Rubricae Marines of the Thousand Sons at the door. They did not move or react for nearly 10 seconds before standing aside and locking themselves to attention as the door opened. Crozus walked past them without further comment and entered the chamber. The chambers had changed a lot since he had first stepped forth on the ship, back when they were clearing the ship of 5th Legion warriors. It was once the chambers of the 5th Legion's shaman, the Storm Seers, he believed they were called. It was a place of tribal tranquility, lavishly decorated. His former company librarian had taken up residence in these chambers, and the place had become filthy and neglected, full of old blood and things that were not blood. Something that became even worse by the horrendous mutation and death of his former librarian. It had taken 150 bolts on fully automatic to kill him, as Crozus recalled, the fleshy mutated abomination that had once been his librarian. Again he focused on the present. The chamber now was a place of crystal, glass, soft rugs and ivory, pleasant to behold in a bizarre artistic way. The remainder of the Tizcan's Rubric Marines were standing like statues equal distance around the central chamber. The figure of Zerahael, the young, non-Rubric member of the 15th and second to the Tizcan Alithial, sat cross-legged in the centre of the room in a trance, while the master of the room, Alithial of the Thousand Sons, sat at a small table, unarmoured in a grey robe. He had a bottle of old wine in his hand, and there were 2 glasses laid out on the table. He greeted Crozus warmly. "Greetings, Captain. Welcome. What brings you to my chambers? By my estimate, we are not due to return to the warp for another 26 hours, so I doubt that you need me on the bridge right now." Crozus unclamped his helmet and walked over, sitting on the chair opposite the Thousand Son without invitation. The Thousand Son poured himself and Crozus a measure of wine. "No, I have come to speak with you," Crozus spoke. "Oh, I do hope you haven't come to say you no longer require my services. I have finally set up my chambers in a manner that is comfortable, so to be forced to leave now would be rather annoying." Crozus shook his head without humour. "No, I merely wish to ask you a question." Alithial slipped some wine and gave a look of interest, although Crozus guessed the Thousand Son knew what he was about to ask. Why are you here, Tizcan? What a philosophical question, Captain. Why are any of us here, I wonder? Is it fate, or is it perhaps... No, that is not what I meant, Crozus cut him off. Why are you here, on this ship, in my service? Well, you rescued me, if I recall. That's not what I meant. Stop being coy, Tizcan. Why are you still here? You were a skilled sorcerer, as far as my understanding of such thing goes, anyway. A capable warrior, a decent void strategist. You could have gone back to your legion at any time after I rescued you, or sold your services to Blackheart or any number of warbands. So I ask you again, why are you still here? Alithial took a larger swig of wine before speaking. I am here because there is nowhere else I would rather be, Captain. And there is nowhere else in the galaxy I can return to. I cannot ever return to my legion. I will never be permitted to step forth on the planet of the sorcerers. Blackheart's mob annoys me. The warbands of thin-blooded whelps disgust me. The word-bearers and night lords have a price on my head, as I understand, so my options of places to go are limited. Why were you banished? Asked Crozus without malice or humour. Alithial pointed to the sitting figure of his legion brother, Zarahael. For choosing my brother's life over the orders of the legion. How did that get you banished? It all has to do with how you found me, Cthonian. You and your squad alone on a world made of marble, whose rivers were blood and trees flesh, sitting on top of a pile of dead word-bearers, if I remember. Yes, that is correct. See, my legion and the word-bearers both learned of an artifact of great importance resting on that world. A list of demons, their true names, and how to recognize them in all their forms and shapes. Mostly small, less powerful demons, but still a valuable prize. Crozus grunted. He detested the things of the warp, and felt little need to know them or understand them any further. So my legion got there first. We fought the word-bearers off, and retrieved the artifact. It was a bloody fight, but when we went to withdraw, and I got to the gunship, I saw that my brother Zarahael, was not with us. I asked my captain why. He told me he was to be the rearguard. He was to be abandoned and left behind to hold the word-bearers at bay, and that I could not abide. Legion brothers die. Some sacrifices need to be made. One brother dies for the sake of the greater goal. Normally, yes, Cthonian, although I've never liked that philosophy, even during the Crusade. However, Zarahael is my blood brother in birth and legion. Besides, they chose him to remain not out of a sense of duty, but because of a bitter hatred of him due to his continued survival. A hatred and jealousy that he still kept his flesh, while so many stronger warriors of the legion became naught but dust. Crozus looked over at this kneeling thousand son in the centre of the chamber, before speaking again. A brother of birth and in legion. Not unheard of, but still a rare bond. Indeed, Cthonian, he was my brother. Well, half-brother. Our mother was the same, but different fathers, although I guess in the legion we were both united with the same father, in Magnus. Crozus gave a grunt that could have been a laugh. So what did you do, Tizcan? My captain told me if I turned around, my place in the legion would be forfeit. I would be banished, outcast. I ignored them. I ran. I took my warriors and ran, with the shouts and bolts of my brothers at my back and at my heels. When I got to my brother, my anger and hatred was all-consuming, and I unleashed everything I had into the word-bearers. And that is how you found me, on top a pile of corpses. Alithial pointed to his brother. My brother is all I have left of Prospero, of my home, of my all-life, of everything that I once was. That to me is more valuable than my place in a shattered legion, led by a fractured father, a legion murdered by my wayward brother. But why are you still here? Asked Crozus. I have purpose and use here, Captain. I am a navigator of a battle barge. I am free from the petty squabbles of other war bands. and the spite of the useless fin-blooded tyrants. Here I have influence, comradeship, even a space of my own to meditate and study. I'm even a member of your company's Mournival. Crozus grunted. I was against that appointment. Not that I have any choice in what Harricon does. Because I am not of your legion, or because I am a sorcerer. The Mournival is for the 16th Legion, was all Crozus said. So that is my story, Captain. The story of how I came to be drinking wine with you here and now. I see. But now I have a question for you, Cthonian. Not why, but what? What do you mean? What are we doing, Captain? I am not a fool. I have seen how our battles of late have been progressing. Attacking supply depots, recruiting warriors, provoking other warbands and legions, stealing ever larger and more dangerous weapons, even aiding imperial worlds for no obvious gain. Do you have a problem with my leadership and choice of targets for the company? Crozus's hand slipped to his sword hilt. Alithial finished his measure of wine before speaking. No, if I had, I would have said something. More a vested interest in what the future direction of us all is. Crozus calmed and spoke to the Thousand Sun evenly. Would you say that Ahriman murdered your legion, and all that it once was? Russ's dogs murdered my legion, Captain. Ahriman killed what was left. Crozus nodded. The Emperor killed Horus, but Abaddon murdered my legion, so Abaddon must die. So you're finally attempting to do it. I often thought that was just a mantra you would tell to keep your company together. Crozus got angry at that. No, it is all there is. Abaddon must die. Abaddon. It has always been Abaddon. By his hand that we are all here, cast out, betrayed, exiled, that the Imperium split itself asunder, that so many of my brothers are dead, that monsters and demons stalk the stars. Abaddon must die. Nothing else matters. Alithial was taken aback by the outburst. Crozus was usually calm, nostalgic and choleric. He thought a few moments before answering the Cthonian. You say Abaddon is responsible for the heresy, but wasn't it not Horus? No, Tizcan, it was not. After Horus fell, and we fled back into the Eye, I had a lot of time to think, lost alone in the warp. I started wondering, why? Why did we lose? But better yet, the greater question, why did this happen at all? I put the pieces together. I interrogated members from every legion I could, even some royalists we captured during the flight from Terra. I wanted to know everything I could from both sides, what had happened, how it had happened. Slowly I pieced together a story of what had happened, how everything came to pass, and I realized it was all Abaddon's fault. When my War Master, when my Primarch, when Horus, my father, was wounded upon Davin, it was Abaddon who suggested letting the Serpent Lodge of Davin heal his wounds. That was where he fell to the abominations in the warp. I know it in my heart to be true. And from there, my father corrupted his brothers and their legions. So from Abaddon does all this come to pass. Did Abaddon know what he was doing? Did he knowingly lead Horus into corruption? Doesn't matter. Abaddon doomed us all, so he must die. Abaddon has always been weak. Crozus spoke the next words mainly to himself. He failed to kill Russ at Yarant. A saturnine gambit cost the free companies and all the Mournival, except Abaddon, who ran to save his own miserable hide. He stole the vengeful spirit, and then to cover his shame he doomed the legion he abandoned and created his own to appease his arrogance. Abaddon deserves to die 10,000 times for even one of these crimes he has committed. For all of them, not even an eternity of torment is enough to appease the scale of his misdeeds. Alithial poured himself another measure of wine and topped up Crozus's half-filled glass, his expression thoughtful and measured. So why help the Imperium? Why save mortals and battle Xenos as we have been doing of late? Was that not our purpose once? To conquer the galaxy, to make the Imperium safe for mortals, to destroy all Xenos and abominations? I have no hatred towards the common humanity of the Imperium, not like some, especially not the citizenry. It has been 10,000 years, and they have been kept stupid and ignorant. I do not hate such creatures. I pity them, rather than hate them. Seems a rather unusual attitude, almost hypocritical considering you've killed hundreds of mortals yourselves in the stealing of our recent weapons acquisitions and all the supplies we have taken. A little more so when you recall the gangs of mortals killing each other on the decks of your ship. Well, I did ask the Imperials to surrender and hand over all those supplies nicely, but they chose to resist, so what can you do? War is war, and warriors need weapons. As for the gangs on my ship, what mortals do with their freedom is their concern. Besides, the gang wars keep the old traditions alive, keeps the spirit of Cthonia alive and the mortal crew strong. So, Captain, what is the plan moving forward? To build up our forces as best we can, wait for Abaddon to be distracted by the Imperials and exposed, and then ram every weapon we have down his throat. A simple Chthonian spearpoint attack. I expect nothing else, as is the way, Tizcan. But the question is, are you with me? Alithial sipped his wine and spoke. Yes. Just like that, Tizcan? Just like that, Chthonian. I shall be most interested to see how you succeed, although I do wonder how the others aboard the ship will react to your plan. The Night Lord enjoys the challenge to show off his intellect. The rest of my company go wherever I ordered them to and kill who I kill without caring about the details. What about the World Eater, the one that stalks the lower decks? Crozus was in the middle of a large swig of wine and looked confused for a moment before answering. Who? Oh yes, him. Harakon's friend. World Eaters are blind butchers, always have been. So long as there is a battle, I doubt he will care who, what or why. Crozus finished his drink and stood up, picking up his battered Mark IV helm from the table. My thanks for the drink, Tizcan. Alithial stood up and extended his hand. Crozus took it and they shook hands before Crozus turned to leave. He turned around and asked another question. Tizcan, I have to wonder, why did you repaint your armor red? Perhaps it's your Chthonian nostalgia rubbing off on me. Or perhaps you have a point. The blue of the rubric was Ahriman's curse to our legion. The red of our legion has always been who we are, who we used to be, just as the sea green is yours, and the black is Abaddon's failure. Crozus nodded, and turned, taking a few steps towards the door. Alithial spoke softly. Captain, you know the Imperium will never forgive us, or take us back. You know that, right? Crozus didn't turn, he just spoke softly. I know, and I would never want to be taken back by this Imperium. Alithial nodded to himself and spoke quietly. Remember, Captain, you are always welcome in my chambers if you ever wish to talk. Crozus nodded and walked out of the chamber silently.